founder of Travel with Meaning. We're a travel storytelling community. Let's give it up for Jack.
There we go. All right.
We're doing this.
Yes.
I feel like this has been a long time.
This is so official.
How we met. And I want to start with this because, again, and you're going to hear this theme a lot. Not where you go, but who you meet. So in April, I was lucky enough, and I say that wholeheartedly lucky enough, to be nominated to go on a trip to Israel through an organization called Reality. And Reality was a week-long leadership course in Israel, and we were in the travel sector. So it was different travel professionals from around the world for this week-long course to learn about leadership through the undertones of Israel. And for neither one of us had ever been to Israel.
Which is complex, too.
Very complex on so many levels. Jack was the first person I met in LAX. We had a flight to New York together, and then we were on a group flight to Israel. But you were the first person I met.
What I find great about it is literally first person I met, and we hung out on the trip, and then we came back from the trip, and we get together and we surf and we hang out. So it was like actually like just like the perfect, I don't know, connection. It is what travel does. You meet the right people, and we've become friends, and it's just been amazing. That's why I'm here today, and it's
true story.
Awesome.
I've sort of been hounding this guy for a while to do the show, but he's a very busy guy. We're going to get into in a second. I want to talk about the Israel trip for a moment.
Yeah.
One, obviously that's where we met, but it was a really impactful trip on a lot of reasons. So in this picture, we are actually standing in the Negev, right over the Negev desert. The last night we were there, we had this really beautiful, it was in the middle of nowhere in the desert, right? It was like a Bedouin kind of party.
Yeah.
I want you to share, who's been to Israel before? Show of hands. Okay. Israel, incredibly beautiful, incredibly complex on a lot of levels. There's conflict that does happen from time to time there, okay? I want you to share your experience just as a whole of Israel, the program, but what happened that last night for you?
Well, the program was incredible. It was interesting. The way that I got to be on that trip was I reached out to a friend of mine and was talking about actually an impactful travel experience. And I said, and it was a spiritual experience I had. It was actually in South Korea. And I said, I've always wanted to go to Israel. And he was like, well, you're in luck. I've got this, I went on this trip, and you have to nominate people to go on, subsequent trips. And so he did that, and I got on this trip. Well, anyways, the trip was incredible. We were all over the place learning so much history, going to these incredible places that just, I've read about in the Bible and all, and all the ancient texts. I mean, that's the birth of all these different religions. It was incredible. Well, anyways, while we were there, we were at this Bedouin community, and we were listening to this amazing speaker, and we got on the bus afterwards, and we were told, they're like, okay, we don't want to freak anyone out, but the conflict with Gaza has significantly escalated, and they started firing missiles towards Israel. And I just want to throw this out there. This conflict is so complex. Mm-hmm. It's heartbreaking to me. I could go into all that, but it's not necessarily, we don't have time for that. But what ended up happening is we went out to the desert like this, and we had this very impactful experience where we had this dinner thrown for us. We were eating and drinking and having a great time, and in the back of all of our minds was this conflict that was going on, and we were so far from it. We were so removed. And I remember thinking, this is our bubble. We are in it right now.
Literally.
We're there, but we're not really there. And we got back to our hotel, and I was connecting with a couple of people. And Mike, you actually ended up coming up. I was sitting on a balcony with two people, and we were watching the missiles fall from the sky. And it was just so heartbreaking and emotional on so many levels. And literally, I love the program, but my observation at the time was I was listening to people partying down in the hotel, and it was like staring out of our bubble. I was still in it, but looking out of it, and it was just it impacted me, and I'm still making sense of what it means to me. But
and it was such a full week on a lot of levels because you're meeting people. you're you're up at 8, you're starting meetings at 8 till like late at night. So there was a lot to process day in and day out. And then you add this on top of it. Again, the program was called Reality.
Yeah.
And I find you couldn't have ended it any more of a reality type of way.
Right.
In the reality that what people live with on a daily basis there.
Totally.
I wanted you to share that experience because it was so real.
Yeah.
It was so real on so many levels. And personally, I didn't actually see the missiles. I know you and a few other people on the balcony got a chance to. I think I got lost, but that's a whole other story. But I wanted you to share because, again, that's where we met. And we could do this whole talk about Israel, but honestly, what I really want to talk about is this stuff.
Yeah.
So Rock the Park. Wow. So much to talk about with Rock the Park.
We're on our 6th season. It's been going on for a little bit. Yeah.
Let's paint this picture here. So you guys are on your sixth season. You're on ABC. I want you to tell how this whole thing came to be.
Sure. So growing up, I'm from Minnesota. The thing you do, I think a lot of us in the Midwest, is we road trip because we like where we live. We have pride for where we live, but we also love to leave. So my family loved to, go on these road trips, and my parents loved going out west, Yellowstone, all of that good stuff. So they took us there, and I was very, very young. And I remember seeing mountains for the first time, and I was just I didn't even know what the feelings were, but I was inspired. It was this isn't real. This was another layer. I wasn't thinking this way as a 9-year-old, but I was like, this is another layer of existence. I just crossed over into another plane because it was I didn't know this existed and I didn't know what these feelings were, but I knew that I wanted to get to the top of that mountain. And from there, my life has been focused on just being around places that I love. So I ended up going to the University of Montana to be near the parks, and I was studying photojournalism, and I wanted to do all my projects in the parks. And my best friend, who is in that picture there, Colton, he came out and visited me on a trip during the summer, ended up applying on the spot, transferred, and from there it was on. We started going on these adventures, and I was doing my assignments, but I was filming our adventures at the same time, not for anything, just for fun. And before we knew it, we had all this collection of adventures on camera. And I started working in television just as a producer. But I would still meet up with my buddy to go on these trips, and we'd still film them. I grew up playing with cameras and making movies. It's just something that has always been fun for me. It was
in the family, something you did, and something you like to do.
Yes, totally in the family business for sure, aside from just stuff we love to do. Well, anyways, I'd meet up with him to go on these adventures, and I did one in Zion National Park, and it became what now is probably known as a vlog, but it was back then, we were just filming our thing. And I showed it to my mom. Shout out to Colleen. She's the best. And I was hesitant to say that. Normally when I tell people this story, I say I showed it to someone. Because I don't know why I always leave my mom out of it.
Let's paint the picture. So mom was a very successful TV anchor for years in Minneapolis.
Yes.
How's this production company?
She started a production company. It's done very well. She does a lot of stuff for Travel Channel, a lot of different networks, VH1, so many. But anyways, I showed it to her, and she's like, all right, I know I'm your mom, but there might be something here. So she's like, maybe you should put together a sizzle reel. And I did, and quick little story about it. She asked me to put together a budget for this, and at the time I did, and it was for $658.30 or something. I had everything lined out, and it was down to the jar of peanut butter, and she laughed at me and was like, all right, here's $1,500, buy 2 jars of peanut butter. But anyways, we did that, and we pitched it around, and we ended up selling it through this company called Litton Entertainment, who does educational programming on CBS, ABC, NBC. I think they might even do Fox now. And that was a little over 5 years ago. And now we're...
And so to date, you guys have done just over 130 episodes.
We've done so many. I don't even have the count, but we celebrated our 100th sometime a year and a half ago. So we've done a lot.
Pretty remarkable. So do you know about how many national parks you guys have visited?
I've probably been to, of the national parks, Yosemite National Park, probably 50 some. And then there's like 419, I think, is the like park units. A lot. I don't even know.
So I want to get into some of those stories in just a second. The thing I want to come back to is, as I introduced Jack, I said, you're an Emmy Award winner. Okay, I want to show this clip, and I want us all to really think about what this is for a second, okay? So,
my heart is just pounding out of
Colton
my
was
body
like
right now.
deathly afraid of heights.
So, this is you guys, this is you going up. So the thing about this episode was, your production team, what happened with them?
So this was episode 4, season 1. So if we look a little rusty, we were pretty new.
We were pretty authentic.
Just like, yeah, we were authentic. Thank you. That's a good way to put it. It was the 4th episode, and we had this crew that we thought were, Colton, the other guy, called them the dream team. He's very optimistic. Well, anyways, we were setting off to do this climb. The summit was the size of like a picnic table, and our crew said, this can't be done. We can't do it. We won't do it. And so I thought, okay, well, I got to figure this out. So I went to Guitar Center and I bought like a Zoom recorder. And I was like, okay, we could do audio with that, right? I saw one.
We got a Zoom recorder over there,
yeah. And my cousin, he's actually here, Coleman, right there. He was working on our show at the time as a production assistant. And he was like, I'll do it. Like, I'll film it. So we gave him a 5D, which is an awesome camera, and we did it. We left our crew behind.
Full skeleton crew.
Yes. We left the whole crew behind. We did it. We didn't have the right food. Our production, the office gave us like boxed lunches. And when you're in bear country, everything has to fit into a bear can. They weren't going to fit. So we went and we bought the jar of peanut butter again and the loaf of bread. We had like not the right amount of food for this, but we did it. We went up and down.
How long did it take you guys to summit?
We hiked up to base camp in a day and then summit and then all the way back down. Okay. So it's 2 days total. And anyways, we submitted it for the Emmys.
Well, let's see.
Okay.
And the Emmy goes to Rock the...
We were pretty excited.
They might have been a little excited.
Yeah.
I wanted to show all that because I love that it's episode 4, and I think in our conversation you're like, episode 4, like, man, we can keep doing this all the time, no big deal.
Yeah.
I love that it was the skeleton crew. It was the determination. It was the passion of like, yeah, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
We can figure it out.
For sure. And that's how I've always done things. So it's like, to me, sometimes I get into conflict with videographers because I'm like, it's the content, and I know there's a give and take there, but really it is about the content, and so we had Coleman here, and he's a good shooter, so we did it, and so to win an Emmy was just, we were never expecting that, but it was just our show has a message. It's to inspire people to get out and enjoy these places, support these places, fight for these places, but also learn something about yourself and connect with something greater than yourself. So to win an Emmy was just kind of like, we're on the right track.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out the Emmy thing mainly for that whole thing. First off, just kudos to you guys, because I think it is something to be, you have on your resume forever, and something to really just acknowledge you guys for, that you are on your right path. Also, in going back to even in the conversation with Monica, it's like, don't stop, keep going. It's like, look, anything is possible.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And to anyone here, anyone who's thinking like, oh, I don't know if I want to take this trip or do this vlog or whatever that looks like, we all could be Jacks or whatever it is. Granted, you did the work. You guys summited.
Yeah. I think the last little thing I'll add to that, though, is, to me, the impact it's had is not even just it has nothing, and I'm not just saying this, like, it has nothing to do with the awards or the television show or any of that stuff. The ways that I've grown as a human being it's just been unbelievable since I've started these adventures.
And so we were talking the other day, and you were on one of your drives back.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll share about that in a second. But one thing you said to me that really kind of stood with me is, you guys are on your 6th season, and there was kind of I don't know, maybe we're not going to get picked up this year. And so you're definitely taking that time now to really reflect more on like really enjoying the journey even more, being super present. And I asked you about this thing I like to talk about. Is like, you've been to so many places, like beautiful places like this. I hate to say this, like, are they all the same sometimes? But do you have that travel with meaning moment, that person you met, and you're like, funny, I just had an experience?
Yeah. Okay. So actually, where this was taken is in the mountains. They're called the Jarbidge Mountains, and Jarbidge, Nevada, is known as the most remote town in the lower 48. It's funny, actually, the two people who I'm talking about were in the sizzle reel. I totally forgot they were in it.
Amazing.
But anyways, long story short, I met these two people in this town because we were trying to climb a mountain a few years back, and it was at the wrong time. It was like 20 feet of snow in the mountains. We didn't have the right gear, and basically this woman, we showed up to the saloon in town to scout, and she's like, thinks we're insane, but also kind of loves it, and we bonded with her, and she was just giving us like tons of guff, and like, she was amazing, just one of the kindest people I'd ever met. Well, anyways, we went up, we didn't make it, came back down, she kind of laughed at us, and we really bonded with her and her husband, and so I came back another time, visited with them, and then thought, okay, well, we can do a Rock the Park episode here. So we came back, we put them on the show, and it was so great. They're just awesome. They said a bunch of stuff. There was one, I just was with them, and they it's a horrible story. I'll save it. But it was one of the things that was amazing about Jarbidge and the old mining history that could never make it on our kid-friendly show. But that's just who she is. She's amazing. Great, funny little bits. But
so your current adventure you just had, because you were, and I think this happens a lot with travelers, where you have expectations, you have a plan, it kind of goes out the window.
Right.
So you were going to all these different places. It was holiday weekend. That didn't happen.
Yes, totally. So I was supposed to go to these couple places on a solo adventure back here to LA. I was driving back to LA, and I had 4 days planned. Well, anyways, each spot kept falling through because it was the holiday weekend, and I made no plans, and I couldn't stay where I wanted to stay, and all this stuff. And it was kind of like, okay, well, I need to find something else. Well, Jarbidge popped up in my mind because I was going by there, and you don't go by there, but it was in the vicinity.
Tell her, because you said it's like a really weird road to get to. Even
one way in, it's like 65 miles on a gravel road. That's open year round. The other way is like 95 miles on a gravel road through the mountains. This was off the other side. Incredible. So I decided to go, and I came into town, and this is the part that breaks my heart, but also is just so touching. But Wanda, the woman we met, has been struggling with cancer, and she's had some really bad health for years. And every time I come back, I'm not sure if I'm going to see her again. And so I come into town and I go to the saloon again, and I was like, "Is Wanda here?" And they're like, "Yeah, they don't get out much. She hangs out on her porch a lot." So I go down there, and I say, "Wanda," and she looks over and she's like, "Jack," and she runs out and she gives me a hug, and it was just so amazing. It was so incredible. Anyways, we're sitting there, we talked for like 2 hours. And midway through, she gets up and goes inside, and she comes back out and she starts telling me this story about her grandfather, who was in World War II. He was at Pearl Harbor, and he was on a submarine, went all over the world. Well, then she starts telling me about this St. Christopher medallion that he carried with him, and that people have wanted to get from her whole life. People tried to buy it, all this. She gave that to me, and said that the moment you walked up, I knew this was for you, and keep it to protect you and give that to your kids. And you talked about impact. I don't think about the impact that I make. I mainly think about other people. But that day I was so humbled by that, because I was like, somehow, some way, I've made an impact on this woman enough where she would give me this priceless, like just this amazing family artifact. And that like touched my soul in a way that I can't even like speak about it. It's just so unbelievable to me.
Do you still have it?
Oh, of course. I already lost it.
Yeah, I was saying
but those are those moments.
Right.
Completely unplanned. The change of plans led me there. And that was just one, that was the majority of it, but I had some other amazing experiences going back to that town, and that's what travel does, especially when you live in the moment and you roll with really where you're being led.
Well said. Coming up with Rock the Park, you have, and we were talking the other day, is like, you have about 16 more episodes to shoot for this season right now.
Right.
I think you're home for like 2 days or something crazy right now. Where are you off to coming up?
Colorado, and then Wyoming, and then Minnesota.
Right.
Going home.
Wow.
Okay, and so Rock the Park is Saturday mornings, ABC. You guys do a really good job to educate, inspire, and get people out there. Go to some of the most incredible places. You just got back from Alaska. You just got back from Montana to Dakota, Black Hills.
Yeah, South Dakota. That's great.
I love how we randomly connected, and I'm like, how do I not know this dude? Like, you're literally living like my backyard, and like, I'm just a fan. Love what you guys do, and I want to talk about something you're doing now on your own.
Sure.
Okay, but that's just you being awesome again. So you have a new project that you're doing on your own.
Yes.
The pursuit is happiness. I want you guys to all think about that for a second. The pursuit is happiness. So think about it. And again, life is a journey, not a destination. And that's why I use the quote for you. Tell everyone what the pursuit is happiness, where it came from, and what you're doing with it.
Well, basically, in the midst of doing Rock the Park, I let it become routine. I found myself just going to these places for work, and personally, I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't growing. I was coming home and I was feeling like a stranger here, and I just wasn't connecting with myself or anybody. And I realized something's got to change here. And so I started really diving into who I am personally. And long story short, that's a long story, but eventually, I had some things happen in my life personally, some health problems in my family and an end of a relationship. And I realized like this is a crucial moment for me to determine how I'm going to move forward with my life. And I realized one day that I wanted to say yes to positive risks and opportunities, because you hear them in your brain when they go off. You know, when an opportunity comes to you, you may be anxious as hell about it. And that happens to me a lot, but you hear like, oh, you really should do that. Well, I started doing that, and that led me to so many incredible things in my life. And I started to realize that like, I was always looking at happiness as like this thing that you achieve. You know, you're going to get there someday. Someday I'm going to be happy. And then I realized that my happiness comes from the pursuit itself, from saying yes to things, from saying yes to maybe go and meet my friend across town in LA traffic. You know, when you're sitting there for 2 hours, I get something out of that. To taking that trip by myself where I'm terrified, you know, out in the desert floor as the bats are swarming over my head, going to Jarbidge, you know, taking 4 extra days to come here to have 2 days before I head off on the road again. I found that like the pursuit of life is my happiness, and connecting with people, connecting with myself, and connecting with God really is what brings me happiness. So anyway, I started living my life, trying to live my life that way. And then I created a YouTube channel and a YouTube series, and it's now branching out into other different little series, but just of that pursuit. That's basically it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about what you're up to, but I really love the conversation. The pursuit is happiness, with the whole, it's the journey, not the destination. I know for myself, and Nicole can totally speak to this, but like, I love to play in the what's already happened, what's going to happen, and I forget to be here. So I'm totally here tonight, by the way, guys. I'm really stoked to be here. But so I love the way you do say that, because I think it's really important to remember for all of us. I did make a second slide just because I like that one too. Dude, again, I'm grateful that we were brought together to go on that trip to Israel, that we met, and that we're friends now. We get to surf, we get to hang out. I love the pursuit is happiness, not only for what you're doing, but how it's even opened the eyes for me. I really appreciate your time being here, and we're all excited to watch what you're up to, and you know, go back and watch old episodes, new episodes, and keep inspiring all of us, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.